Good evening, everyone. My name is Deb Templeton. I'm currently the Chief of System Support Services for Geisinger Health System and serve as Treasurer of the Bellwether League. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce Robert Yokel. And in the conversations prior to the dinner tonight, I think I've learned more about Bob than really what the papers could actually tell me. But Bob has over 53 years of experience in the healthcare supply chain arena. He attended Temple University School of Business Administration, where he majored in organizational development. And in his words, he kind of fell into the supply chain by starting to work on the line. And must have done a good job because over time he just kept getting more and more responsibilities. He served in the U.S. Navy from 1962 to 1965. So Robert, we'd like to thank you for that service. He's been a member of the Lions International for over 45 years. He's been local chapter president on 4 different occasions, and over the years have raised over $300,000 for various charities. As a hospital director, Bob has participated in many professional organizations and associations and advisory boards. From 1960 through 1987, he worked in various supply chain positions in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. In 1987, he started his own consulting firm and is the nation's leading authority in supply value analysis and value engineering in healthcare today. And I would hesitate to say that you can't open a healthcare journal without seeing Bob's picture there. He's the developer and program leader for a program called Certified Value Analysis Practitioner and Certified Value Analysis Train the Trainer programs. He's also a co-developer of the healthcare industry's foremost value analysis software called ValueNet Central. Over the last 2 decades, Mr. Yokel saved 400 hospitals and healthcare systems over $500 million with his money-saving systems, training, coaching, and technology solutions. He's adapted to healthcare classic techniques and methods of value analysis and value engineering. This is a 6-step process known as the value analysis funneling process. The system has been utilized and taught to thousands of healthcare professionals over the past 30 years and adapted to on-demand learning program, which was used by organizations nationally throughout the healthcare industry. It's interesting in talking to Bob, he's worried about the next generation and who's going to do the training. It's going to take a different skill set. He lectures frequently on strategic value analysis and materials management topics. He's the author of more than 13 books, videos, CDs, teleseminars, audios, training programs, and white papers. His articles are regularly published in various professional journals. And he has provided innovative, no-cost webinars, teleseminars to a national audience of supply chain and value analysis professionals. His tireless passion for value analysis has touched and trained countless supply chain and other healthcare professionals. He leaves a great legacy of training and educating the supply chain leaders of the past and the future. So I don't think he has any worry about who's going to train next. I think he's leaving quite the legacy and I think passion behind, especially with his son carrying on. So please join me in congratulating Mr. Robert Yokel.
It's a wave of time, my friends. Unbelievable. Deb, thank you very much for that introduction. It's a little hard to sit here and hear all the stuff about you, but I do appreciate it. First of all, I'd like to thank the Board of Directors for selecting me and nominating me, and specifically for Jamie Kowalski for nominating me. You can imagine it's been a long journey for me, and I always say it's a circuitous road. I didn't plan to be in the supply chain, it found me. But the good news is I enjoyed every year that I've been in this profession. Let me give you a little history that Deb didn't have. Started out in the purchasing department as a purchasing assistant in the 60s. This is the way you usually started in supply chain management when, in the last few decades. That meant you worked in the storeroom, you worked in the receiving department, shipping department, and you also typed the purchase order. So it wasn't just one job. You had every job in the department. And you learned everything about supply chain management, although they called it purchasing then. I also want to give you a little history about where I came from. I was a U.S. Navy corpsman. That's the way many of us came up. Was there any corpsmen here? Here we go, friends. That's many of us came through the U.S. Navy and continued our journey and come back into the supply chain management. Again, it was called purchasing. It wasn't called materials management. I had 3 hospitals that I worked at. That's how I got my basic training. I was vice president of the oldest medical surgical distributorship in the USA, which Deb didn't have in her her resume. And what that meant is I worked on the other side of the desk for a couple years until they went out of business. And then I came back into the materials management side of the business. But it was very interesting to see how the wheels worked on the other side of the desk. Also was a GPO executive because I worked for a for-profit healthcare system, and at the time, GPOs were not giving any type of membership to for-profit organization. Anybody remember that? Nobody. Am I old? So we had to start our own GPO, and that's just what we did. It was like a six hospital for-profit healthcare system, and it worked very well, even though it was for profit. We still cared about the patients, but we had I'd say, focus on the bottom line. In fact, I was telling somebody today, I had to justify my Wall Street Journal every year to my boss. Now, that was at that time, it was like $50, and I have to go, I really got to check out what the cost of silver is because we had reclamation of silver, etc. At $50, I had to every year justify. That was the good news about nonprofit or for-profit. The bottom line was very, very important. Then I moved on to nursing home chain, 27 nursing homes, vice president support service. Was that fun? Do you think hospitals and nursing homes are the same? No, they're completely different. Different kind of clientele, different kind of problems, different kind of challenges. So I had a lot of fun, and that was the time that the DRGs were coming into play, and I was out of the picture at the time. When I came back in about 3 years later, I had to learn the business all over again because the DRGs really made a difference in healthcare organizations. Also, supply chain consultant for a number of years, working for a hospital management company, and then finally a CEO of my company for 32 years, along with my son, who is now COO of the company. And as I always say, he does the heavy lifting now. I can go into work at 10 o'clock. So that's the good news. As an aside, I once hired a manager for my firm, or at least interviewing, and when the interview was finished, I asked him, have any questions, have any comments? He said, I hear you had an awful lot of jobs. So I had to say, well, my answer is, I had a varied career, but we moved forward every decade. And I think that's what we all want to do, move forward every decade. Also, the career path had shown me one thing, that supply chain management, nothing happens at a healthcare organization, a surgery center, a nursing home chain, et cetera, without supply chain's influence, without supply chain input, and without their certainly intervention. And you can think, if you were in the supply chain now, whether on the vendor side or the hospital side or the system side, nothing happens without our intervention today. Now our management is listening to us. They do understand that we have a very important role in whether it's new construction or it's new projects or it's in just day-to-day operations. So I'm very proud to say that is a very good, important part of a supply chain. In fact, without supply chain, the cog in the wheel would stop, and there would be no operations, there would be no procedures, there would be nothing happening at your healthcare organization. It's a career you can be proud of, and certainly I'm satisfied. I've always been satisfied with it, or rewarded by it, and challenged by it. We talked about value analysis. My passion started in the 60s, believe it or not, when I worked at my first hospital. It was called then, I was a director of purchasing. That was the title then. And I got this bright idea because the supply chain industrial organization was pushing value analysis. And I started to learn, what is this value analysis? And that's why I put together a committee, not a team, and started to play around with this concept. And it's not about putting people together on a team and say, go save money. That's what I was able to realize. It's looking at the functionality of the product. Do we really need it, as you talked about today, many of us? Is it appropriate for what the intended use is? You really want to look at it. It's not about price. It's about all those things that put together a product that's unique to each healthcare organization, unique to each service. And when you do that, you find out it's at the lowest cost for that particular purpose. It might be a little high, but for that particular person, it's the right product at the right time. So I have a real passion, still have the passion, still enjoy it every day of my 58 years. Also, we're into supply utilization in my company, which is the new next extension to value analysis. Where do we go from here? Okay, we have the appropriate profit, now we're using it appropriately. That's what we've moved into, and I would call it the next level of value analysis that we all should be looking at. I want to talk about some of the mentors. Joseph D. Bussinger, who hired me twice. Boy, did he make a mistake, right? First as a purchasing assistant, and then I come out of the Navy and I find an ad in the paper, and I said, gee, I think I know this guy at this hospital. He hired me again. So that was very nice of him, and he was the best coach and mentor that I've ever had. We also had a GPO executive, his name is Cleve James, who's since deceased, who also was a great mentor to me. I used to pick up the phone when I had a problem, and he would coach me through the problem. Can you believe that? I couldn't get a hold of any GPO executive today, but it was a smaller organization that could respond to the hospital's requirements and to the supply chain manager's needs at the time. Also, Bob Matthews, who was vice president of Medic Management Services. We managed hospitals, and I was one of the guys that made sure the supply chain discipline was working well with all the hospitals owned or managed in Pennsylvania. He was a very good supporter in my early and mid-career. Otherwise, I'd be really lost in the wilderness. And I hope all of you have mentors. If you don't have mentors, go out and get them. They're there. These are the people that are helping you every day, and you don't realize they're not just doing it to help you. They're doing it to help themselves. Mentoring is a way to pass on your education to the next generation, and it's a good thing, a purposeful thing to do. I couldn't substitute this wisdom and guidance and the straight talk that these people gave me. Search out one of them for yourself, I said, and it certainly can make a difference in your career. Without these people, I wouldn't be standing here today. I guarantee it. Let me just, in closing, say that, to paraphrase World War II Commander General Douglas MacArthur, it seems like that's what we like to do today, is quote the generals and the admirals. Only supply chain managers never die. Old supply chain managers die. They just fade away. Personally, I'm not ready to fade away anytime soon. I still have a job that is satisfying, challenging, and rewarding. And I want to thank you again for the unexpected honor that I received today. Great.